Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Joining me are my co-host, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewiton, and Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Happy Friday, Emily and Lawrence.
Happy Friday to you too.
To see you. All right, so let's have a quick look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $57,740. Bitcoin slightly down about over 4% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk ETX index right now at $4,216. ETH slightly creeping up at 42.16, up about 1%. And the new DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 553 points, down just over 1% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So taking a look at one of our top stories is ConstitutionDAO. Guys, I was watching this last night. They were bidding for the Constitution and they lost. And I just felt so bad for these guys. Their
Canadians
enthusiasm.
Canadians don't have a written constitution, do you guys, right? Like Pierre Trudeau came back in 82 with nothing in his hand, but he said, "Oh, I repatriated it."
We have the Queen. but these guys, I mean, this was a flash mob of crypto nerds who got together and were able to raise over $40 million or so to buy the Constitution, which was only valued at about $15 million to $20 million at Sotheby's auction house, and they still got outbid. And it was hard not to be carried away by the enthusiasm, the positivity of their, flash mob movement. But, it's unfortunate that they lost. Any thoughts, Emily?
They seem to see it as a victory, though. That's the impression that I'm getting. Even though it was technically a loss, it just sort of like put DAOs on the map. It kind of made, this was the first time we've seen this at this kind of scale. It raised awareness of how these DAOs work. I don't think they see it as a failure, but let's hear directly from one of the people who participated in it.
Yeah, exactly to Emily's point. I mean, there are people in America who, if not the world, who never heard of what a DAO was before, and now they're like, "Oh my God, they bought the Constitution! They almost bought the Constitution." So
they got in the New York Times.
Yeah, got in the New York Times, and we also have to explain that DAO isn't actually a country that's going to take over the world.
Which could be potentially, getting all that publicity could have been a negative factor in the sense that everyone knew that the Constitution was up for bid. And so folks who may not have, known about it or thought about bidding on it beforehand knew about it now, and it just created a greater pool of competition. Well, when the gavel banged last night, the first edition copy of the Constitution, one of only 13 in existence, was in the new hands for $43 million. ConstitutionDAO's 40 plus million in ETH wasn't enough to seal the deal. Joining us now to discuss is the largest contributor to the project, Yosi Hassan, co-founder and CEO of NFT investment firm Metaversal. Hi there, Yosi. It was such a shame that the Constitution DAO lost, but I'd love to hear a play-by-play of what happened last night from your end.
Yeah, it was such a shame that ultimately the DAO did not get the Constitution into the hands of the people to govern it. But the play-by-play was that we thought we were there. We had to make sure that no one actually knew who our bidder was. That was part of the stealth strategy. Having all of our transactions on chain meant that a counter bidder would know roughly how much we could go up to. So we at least wanted to make sure that the person that we were bidding against didn't actually know that it was us. So that also caused a little bit of confusion for the DAO itself. At the end of the auction, people were asking, well, are we David? Are we Brooke in the bidding? And it took a little while for us to know that we actually did not win. But like what's being said on the show here, it's still seen as a win. In 7 days, over $49 million was actually raised. 17,000 contributors came together. You called it a flash mob.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Okay,
I think Yossi just froze. So, we'll try to get him back as
the constitution of his internet connection was. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that, they tried to make the bidder someone that was somewhat anonymous. Nobody knew who was representing ConstitutionDAO in the process. But as he said, the numbers were public. So the person who was bidding against ConstitutionDAO knew roughly how far they could go. But he also mentioned they had $49 million. And the bids only went up to, the winning bid was $43 million. So I'm curious to know.
So,
why
there was a tweet. There was a tweet they put out, and I'd love to talk to him about it. Is that there was a tweet they put out saying that it wasn't just buying the Constitution, but also maintaining it with security, and you have to have all sorts of air filters and things like that. It's not just now you have the Constitution, you put it in a notebook and hide it in a drawer somewhere. You actually have to do all sorts of stuff to maintain something of that value. And that was an extra expense, an extra margin that was going to cost a little too much. But you were asking about, who bid, and I've had that theory that it's either Nicolas Cage or Vladimir Putin. Those are my two likely.
Right. Let's try to get Yossi back on the line. Let's take a quick break, and we can ask him if Vladimir Putin.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination, in the form of cultural creativity, is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
All right, we're back with Yosi Hassan, the largest contributor of ConstitutionDAO. So, Yosi, good to have you back. You mentioned you had $49 million, so the bidding stopped at $43 million. How did you decide to stop it there? And what was your role in all of this? Who's deciding, who's the bidder and how far it goes?
Yeah, 41 million was the closing bid. We had 49 million in total to be able to contribute. But with fees that go on top of the bidding price and with a document as important as this, there also needs to be some treasury available for the ongoing safekeeping and logistics involved. So that was our app we were prepared to go until, and unfortunately we're taken beyond that. So that's why there's a difference in the numbers. And how it worked was the ConstitutionDAO community elected who that bidder would be. Through the core multi-sig owners. That was not revealed to the broader community for the purpose of not knowing who the bidder is, and was given the mandate that they could go up till that number. And obviously, once we crossed that number, we could no longer continue in the bidding against this anonymous person who we were all speculating who this person could be.
And what exactly, the people who participate in this, what exactly were they getting for their money? Because if I understand correctly, it wasn't actually fractional ownership because that raises securities law questions, right? So was it just kind of like a donation? Was it just to sort of participate in the process?
Yeah, it was not a security. So you weren't getting a piece of the Constitution. You don't own the Constitution, you were getting the right to govern it. And what that means is you were given the right to have a say in how this document continues to live. Where will it get showcased? Which museum will we potentially take it to? Is there any artistic collaborations that could be done with it? Potentially creating some kind of experience in the metaverse for other people to be able to interact with it who aren't necessarily able to access a museum. All of those decisions of how to bring the story of the Constitution to life would be in the hands of the people who contributed towards it. So it's really about the governance and ongoing safekeeping and education of what the Constitution has really been trying to tell us, and that story for the past 200 odd years. And now, for the first time, allowing the people to be able to be part of that narrative moving forward.
And what, in your view, was the most challenging part of this process? Like, just there, I'm sure there were many things, but I mean, just any kind of decentralized process is going to hit roadblocks. What were the hardest things to manage here?
The hardest thing to manage was most likely the kind of inbound excitement that happens so quickly. This is a group of people strangers that didn't know each other on Thursday, rallying together with this mission and got worldwide press, worldwide attention. The Discord group grew to over 18,000 people in a really short period of time. Initially, on Monday and late on Tuesday, there was only $4 million in contribution, and we thought we needed to get to 20 at least in order to have a standing chance. So it looked like maybe we weren't even going to get there. And from there, things just spiraled, and we managed to get to that $49 million number 24 hours later. And coordinating that at scale is quite a challenge. There were 39 core contributors who really didn't sleep, eat, or drink anything other than ConstitutionDAO, and thousands of people who backgrounds in PR, website building, access to managing communities and groups, all lended their hand to be part of this, which was remarkable. What's also remarkable is that the technology that needed to make this happen already all existed. It wasn't like there was much that needed to be built. We used a platform called Juicebox to be able to get all the Ethereum contributions made, and that was already available, and you could see that publicly and transparently. The multi-sig, which means that there were multiple people who would sign off any transaction, was controlled by 13 people who were nominated by the DAO. That technology already existed. And the ability, if one, to be able to convert every contribution into a token that then gives you a vote, that technology existed as well. So that's what really allowed something to be able to spring up in 7 days and be able to do something like this.
Did having the world know pretty much how much money went into this DAO before the bidding began, did that put you at a disadvantage going up against another entity that can keep its cards to itself and not show its hand? Do you think that a little bit of game theory went into play here and worked against you?
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. We thought, going out with a statement of let's put the Constitution in the hands of the people, and we have over $40 million to do that on a historical document that was valued at between 15 to 20 million, and would be the all-time high sale for a document of this nature. We thought that strategy would potentially dissuade anyone from trying to bid against the people. Unfortunately, that strategy didn't play out, and someone was willing to pay more than that. Ultimately, though, that we also see as a success, because that $41 million is going to a charitable donation to further the education of the Constitution, and that well-needed money to worthwhile causes to do that. So, in effect, that document could have sold for a lot less without ConstitutionDAO, and that money wouldn't have gone to the causes that are being backed here as well. So, ultimately, a success all around.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any inkling of who the winner might be? And just saying that ConstitutionDAO would have won, what would they have done with the Constitution? There were some rumors that, they would burn it and in a kind of a live performance like way and turn it into an NFT.
Yeah, I think those rumors were quickly put down by the majority of the members in the DAO. This is an iconic historical document that we would most want to treat with the respect that it deserves and not burn it and just turn it into an NFT. Although there were conversations about how could we turn something like the constitutional document into an NFT so that more people could experience it or have access to it or be part of this historical movement. The major conversation was around how to further the education of this document and move it around the world and allow other people to understand the story of how they too could govern it. Having a QR code at every exhibit that allows someone to then see that they could purchase a people token that will give them the rights to govern this and being able to be part of that experience. Trying to make the experience more immersive. What could that look like? How could we bring someone into the shoes of the founding fathers at that moment and have those kind of debates in an immersive world at the signing of the Constitution and doing that type of process. Those were the kind of conversations that were getting much more attention, and every proposal would have needed to be brought to the DAO. So there was no answers to it. The focus was really in the 7 days that we had, let's go out, raise enough money.
Any idea who the winner is?
No idea who the document winner is. There is speculation that it could be one or two crypto whales, but I don't want to add fuel to the rumors on who that person could be until we...
It's not Vladimir Putin.
It's definitely not Vladimir Putin.
But so now that you've shown that this could be possible, do you have your eyes set on anything else? I mean, like, what's the Magna Carta doing? I mean, what else are you doing besides the Constitution? Like, do you have any other ideas of let's say historic items that could be saved, or other things of cultural value that maybe perhaps can get a flash mob, if you will, behind it? Anything going on right now?
Well, the mission of
that you have your eyes.
The mission of Metaversal is to invest in what we call infinite stories that are a reflection of our culture, and that's why we were so excited about getting behind ConstitutionDAO and being one of the largest contributors to it. And our view is that this is going to become part and parcel of how our historical artifacts and culture is collected and jointly governed and owned by much larger pools of people. So this experiment really showed the world that this is possible, that people around the world, for something that is culturally relevant to them, is of historical significance, is wanted to be owned and governed by the masses and not necessarily safeguarded only by institutions or museums or a couple of high net worth crypto whales around the world who are probably bidding against us.
And what's going to happen with the $49 million that was raised?
49 million will be returned to everyone who contributed. So that was done in Ethereum. So that ETH will be returned to any of the contributors. There is some conversation about taking the movement ConstitutionDAO and potentially looking at creating a metaverse constitution and seeing what that could look like. But that's not going to involve any of the funding for this particular cause. But there are conversations about other causes that ConstitutionDAO could get behind.
All right. Well, then the story continues. Looking forward to seeing where it goes. It's a shame that you guys lost, but I see that you've awakened the world to what a decentralized autonomous organization is and is capable of doing within a short amount of time. So, Yossi, thank you very much. I consider that a victory. That was Metaversal CEO Yossi Hassan. All right, time now to check in with our daily forecast and update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Megha Chatta of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Focus, November 19th, 2021. I'm Megha Chatta of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Amid a sea of red in the crypto top 10, Bitcoin has fallen around 18% in 8 days. We'll take a look at what's driving markets down and a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. Let's kick off with some of the top stories out of Asia today. Alibaba's blockchain arm Anchain is continuing its fight over, quote, malicious hype of NFTs. Amid ongoing criticism from Chinese state media, Chain made a vow to resist the hype 3 weeks ago and rebranded NFTs as digital collectibles. And now it's announced new rules on their transfer. The first holder must wait 180 days before it can be transferred, while a second holder has to wait a full 2 years before they can do the same. All buyers will need to be mainland residents over the age of 14. And South Korea's CBDC development is well underway, with the Bank of Korea's Deputy Governor Bae Jun-suk saying that progress is not one step behind that of other countries. The research project began testing the CBDC's issuance and circulation in August and plans to finish by June 2022. The Deputy Governor says although it's hard to affirm exactly when the CBDC will be adopted, the technology will be ready to issue it as soon as that decision is made. You can find more on those stories at focus.news. And it's been a bad week for the crypto market. After breaking the $3 trillion mark 10 days ago, the global crypto market cap has taken a plunge, losing around $400 billion by Friday midday Asia time. Focus News' Carolyn Wright has more on the market fall.
After hitting an all-time high of $69,044 on November 10th, Bitcoin has slumped sharply since Monday, falling below the $56,000 mark Friday lunchtime in Asia, according to data from CoinGecko. And Bitcoin isn't the only casualty. Ethereum, Binance Coin and Solana all saw double-digit losses, which contributed to the global cryptocurrency market cap dropping more than 15%. But one expert told Forecast News she believes Bitcoin's long-term outlook is healthy.
From my perspective, this is a market correction. Actually, driven by tons of IDOs, which we witnessed for the previous crypto bull run. People take profit from Bitcoin and invested in unfounded and untested projects. We've seen this phenomenon in 2017, the ICO, and 2020, the IEOs, and now it repeats itself. But the market is more mature now with the institutions' participation, so it's unlikely to make a huge dent.
Despite the overall drop, Avalanche surged to an all-time high after Deloitte announced a strategic alliance with Ava Labs this week. And Crypto.com coin also hit an all-time high after Crypto.com's blockbuster deal for naming rights to Los Angeles' iconic Staples Center arena. Both have since fallen back from those highs. For Forecast News, I'm Carolyn Wright.
Meanwhile, it seems South Korea can't get enough of the metaverse. Now, a number of banks are joining in on the craze. But what could a trip to the bank in the metaverse offer? Forecast News' Danny Park reports.
The Industrial Bank of Korea has announced a memorandum of understanding with CyWorldSet, an original social media platform in South Korea, revamped as a metaverse. IBK plans to open a metaverse bank called IBK Dotori Bank. Dotori, which means acorn in Korean, is a cybercurrency that was used on CyWorld in its heyday in the early to mid-2000s. IBK says it will launch financial products streamlined for CyWorld users, including a bank book that will reward users for the amount of Dotori they purchase. And KB Kookmin Bank says it is getting ready to launch a branch office in the metaverse. Earlier this year, it has said it was looking into Roblox. Meanwhile, NH Nongyap Bank, which has partnered with the crypto exchanges Bithumb and CoinOne, is to open NH Dokdoverse next year, where its clients can spend time away on the island of Dokdo on the metaverse. While it's difficult to travel to in real life, NH users will be able to play games and buy properties on a virtual replica of Dokdo Island. For Forecast News, I'm Danny Park.
And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit focus.news. I'm Megha Chadha. Until next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
All right, let's have a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index currently trading at $57,837. Bitcoin is down over 2% over the past 24 hours. Taking a look at the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is up about almost 1%, trading at $4,211. And the DFX CoinDesk DeFi index at 555 points. DeFi, though, slightly down about 0.7%. Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Haohan Xu, CEO and crypto trading platform Apifiny. Hello there. Oh, right now we have, there we are. All right, we have Haohan. Welcome, Haohan. All right, so the crypto markets are taking another step back. How low do you see Bitcoin going?
Well, we have been seeing Bitcoin failing to consolidate at its recent highs, but I think people calling for the bear seem to have taken the correction a bit, taken the rally a bit for granted. So the correction is minimal compared to what we saw in the past 2 months. So I think what's happening right now is just a healthy pullback after a fast 7-week rally from 40K to 69K, which is well over 70% gain. So the pullback is completely normal in an upward trend like this.
Is anything in particular driving this pullback, or is it just kind of the flow of the market?
I think just the flow of the market.
So we've kind of seen this decline in demand for leverage, but the open interest is still there. It's still relatively high compared to where it was a couple of months ago. Do you think that we might see, is there at least a threat where we could have mass liquidations if prices inch down lower and lower? Even if it kind of goes gradually, all of a sudden it could just kind of hit suddenly. Do you think that's a threat?
Yes, indeed. So based on the data we're seeing, we'll also see a significant shift in trading volume from Bitcoin to Ethereum and other altcoins. So the demand is definitely shifting to other coins as well. So the fact that Bitcoin is falling drastically in the past few days could be a threat to the Bitcoin price. Yeah.
You also mentioned, looking at some of your notes from earlier, that Taproot might have an impact. Do you believe that the benefits of Taproot are already priced in, or we might see them a little longer down the way for Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I think it is priced in already. So the Taproot upgrade is actually a combination of 3 upgrades, right? Short signatures, Taproot itself, smart contracts. So altogether, they kind of expand on Bitcoin's smart contract flexibility, so which offers more efficiency and privacy in doing so. So even after the Taproot upgrade, Bitcoin likely won't ever be as versatile as Ethereum in smart contracts, but having Taproot definitely helps. Ethereum and Solana have much more, battle-tested programmability. But one thing we know for sure is that Taproot upgrade will bring more flexibility to the developers and efficiencies to the entire Bitcoin protocol. So this could start driving more innovation and even demand to the protocol and help the entire network thrive.
So if we have somewhat positive tailwinds here, why is there nonetheless this sort of lack of enthusiasm at the end of this year for, you could say, well, it's a healthy pullback, but why aren't people buying the dips as would be expected at these prices?
I think people will actually come in and buy the dips. So usually how institutions think is quite different from the retail traders. So usually during these dips, institutions see it as a good opportunity for market entry. As I said earlier, I think because the rally has been really aggressive in the past few weeks, it's just a healthy correction at this point.
All right, Haohan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your insights. That was Apifiny CEO Haohan Xu. Coming up, Ethereum incubator ConsenSys raising $200 million at an over $3 billion valuation, and our global policy and regulation managing editor update with CoinDesk's Nick Day. Welcome back. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day. Good morning, Nick. So maybe you can give us a recap of what happened in yesterday's hearing with Solei Oomarova, as she is being considered for the role of OC of the Office of the Controller of the Currency.
Good morning. Yes. Professor Oomarova had her confirmation hearing before the Senate Banking Committee yesterday, and it was interesting. So it was honestly a little bizarre. So you had quite a few questions that were based around something she wrote in a paper about a potential central bank digital currency and what it might mean for the financial system in the U.S. There were a lot of questions, not so much about the digital currency aspect of that, but just about a phrase that she quoted about how at some point the Fed could take over and end banking as we know it, is the quote, I believe. And it was a little odd to kind of to realize that central bank digital currencies were kind of at the core of this, but not something anyone actually asked about. There were some questions about her views on crypto regulation directly. Senators John Ossoff of Georgia and Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming both asked about crypto and stablecoin regulation. And it does seem that she's in favor of more regulation, but they didn't really get a chance to get too into detail. Now I think we're going to have to wait and see how the Senate votes, or the Senate committee votes rather, and whether or not her nomination will be passed up to the entire Senate for approval or not.
All right. We got to wrap it there, Nick, but thanks for the quick update. Appreciate you coming on. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
ConsenSys plotting massive expansion following a $200 million fundraising round, pegging the Ethereum incubator at a $3.2 billion valuation. Amid a war for talent, part of those funds will go toward hiring 400 new staff. Joining us now is Lex Sokolin, Global Fintech Co-Head at ConsenSys. Hello there, Lex. So it feels just like yesterday that it was crypto winter and there were huge rounds of layoffs at ConsenSys. But can you reflect on that boomerang turnaround?
Sure. And these are big words, massive and huge and expansion. And I think the reality is, of course, very exciting because there is tremendous operating growth at the company. We're now at 21 million monthly average users in MetaMask, 350,000 developers using Infura. So there's real product traction there. But at the same time, we're in a very different environment. So the ConsenSys of maybe 4 or 5 years ago was a venture studio that was run like a broad portfolio. The ConsenSys that has raised this check and is growing its product footprint is a company that was spun out of that portfolio and is really focused on the operations of these businesses, of these developer businesses, of these user businesses. And so we are running, a ship that is trying to accomplish very specific things. And the growth that we're trying to get is, specifically tied to product initiatives, to marketing, to trying to get MetaMask to 100 million users. And so we think it's a very different environment and context for the types of things we're trying to do.
So Lex, thanks for coming on. But nonetheless, you did let go of a lot of people. Do you think, in retrospect, that they should have been retained and redeployed elsewhere in ConsenSys? And will you be hiring any of them back, or have you reached out to them to see if they're available, or are you just going to make them go through the hiring process all over again?
I understand the framing of the question, but it is a little bit strange. So we had a restructuring which created ConsenSys Software, which is the company that that has been growing and is getting these more conventional equity investments. And then there's also a portfolio of other companies called ConsenSys Mesh that has a number of other projects and things that are going on there that are also very exciting and growing as well. So for example, Gitcoin is a project that was spun out of the Mesh as well as ConsenSys Software. And so I think the intent of the company is to grow and to grow responsibly and to build things out. folks that are alumni of ConsenSys in its early iterations are massively talented people, and 2020 was an unbelievably difficult year for a host of reasons that we all have gone through. And so, of course, we're super interested in opening up those conversations. But I think it would be somewhat bizarre to try to do a campaign of the type that you describe.
Well, I don't. It's not necessarily bizarre, but the question is that sometimes you try to retain talent even during the hard times, because when you do have flush times such as now, you sort of want to keep that talent pool happy and working and productive, even if you do redeploy them. So I guess my question really is that do you think that you maybe perhaps made too much of a cut earlier, and maybe looking back, it might not have been the best move, because now you have to go through the whole cost of rehiring and etc. Was that necessarily the best move back then?
Yeah, I just think the situation is a lot more nuanced. Again, in the sense that it was a restructuring. It wasn't like the old entity has a bunch of cuts, but rather it was figuring out, okay, this part of the business looks like a software product company, and then looking at other things and saying, this looks like a venture capital business where there are startups that are trying to prove their own traction, and this stuff makes sense and this stuff doesn't make sense. And so it was, I think, an existential and very difficult moment for the company. And we certainly tried to get through that in the most responsible and empathetic way possible, but it was obviously a very difficult situation. I think the market has turned, although crypto markets are always volatile. And the main difference here is that for the ConsenSys project that has spun out, which includes the things I kind of described, there's operating progress that's very tangible, that's very legitimate. And so again, we love the Web3 ecosystem, and we focused a lot on trying to create a workplace that's productive, that's inclusive, that's equitable. And of course, we'd love to grow the firm with talented folks.
Let's just completely pivot here. Let's talk about ETH. So, if we look at ETH and the recent price movements, I'm just curious, what you think are some of the main factors driving ETH. So, there's a few possible theories out there. One is that it's just, kind of number 2 market cap, and it's just kind of going along with Bitcoin. But there's a lot of things that are happening that are specific to ETH, like the NFT boom, for example, or, some of these meme coins that are kind of associated with ETH. So, when people are looking at the fluctuations in ETH price, what do you think are some of the main factors behind them?
Yeah, absolutely. And human nature doesn't change over centuries and millennia, and so in markets and in trade, you're always going to have the animal spirits, and then you're going to have fundamentals and more of the underlying operating reality of the world. And I think we are super excited about Web3 and the fundamental secular change it's creating. I run the crypto economics group at ConsenSys, and so we build kind of a 3-stage framework for thinking about the ETH price, starting with the global macro environment, right? So are we risk on or are we risk off in the overall story of interest rates, of what the central banks are doing, of what inflation's doing? And then the risk on, risk off story turns into a crypto macro story, which talks about at the overall level between Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polygon and the other large chains, what's happening in terms of the capital gains that generates. And then finally, that turns into Web3 and the more secular fundamental progress within Web3, which is what a lot of our company builds and is exposed to. And so, you've got the layers of payments and transactions, and then you've got the layer of decentralized finance, which continues to innovate and be very interesting. On top of that, you're starting to see an economy of digital objects, NFTs, and you see that both in enterprise as well as on kind of bottoms up consumer side. And then finally, that's starting to congeal into DAOs. And of course, you've talked about ConstitutionDAO, which is massively exciting, and congeal into culture and congeal into gaming, congeal into the metaverse, and expand out into these layers of additional networks that expand what Ethereum can do. And so, the numbers and the operating progress and the number of people that use things continues to go up, and the value within them continues to go up. So from the fundamentals, we're very convinced about where the world is going. And I think the animal spirits we can only weather. There's not much you can do about that.
All right, Lex. Well, exciting times ahead. Thanks for joining us this morning. That was ConsenSys Global Fintech co-head Lex Sokolin. Time now to check in with Crypto Twitter for our tweet of the day and some parting thoughts from the contributors of ConstitutionDAO, who lost their bid to buy a copy of that Constitution from Sotheby's auction house. Ansgar.eth tweeting, seems like we lost, but maybe the real Constitution was the friends we made along the way. Happy weekend. That's it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily Parker and Lawrence Luton. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with all about Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.